looking at those properties, it's heartbreaking. I wouldn't personally want to live there. Would you?
Oh, no way in hell. They are absolutely horrendous. I don't know how anyone could sleep in there. I mean, you've seen the amount of roaches and things like that and mice. They'd be crawling on you all night. There is no way I would live or be able to sleep in those properties. And from the, I suppose, the police side and civilian side here, this is why so many children are on the streets. There is not, I don't know any child that would want to spend time in that or use a toilet in that or bath in that sort of environment or just sleep in there on the floor with cockroaches and mice everywhere and rubbish, dirty nappies, smashed windows, intoxicated people, violence, sexual offences against children, women. I've been to jobs where 4-month-old and 7-month-old babies have been raped by grown men in their 30s and 40s in environments like that. But yeah, a child, if I was one of those children, I would not be in that environment. I would be on the street as well. You would not get me to spend a night in those properties.
The streets certainly seem cleaner than that and almost safer than that.
Yeah, definitely, and definitely safer.
Yemini for Rebel News in Alice Springs, and what you're about to watch is another report filed at therealvoice.com.au where you can see everything we've covered here over the week. Therealvoice.com.au. Have your say, and if you think our mission is important to tell the other side of the story, the truth from here on the ground in Alice Springs, please consider chucking in a few bucks to cover the cost. Therealvoice.com.au. It wasn't cheap to get here, but I think it was well worth it. Therealvoice.com.au. Check out all our reports and share them far and wide. Enjoy this one.
I'm the owner of a construction renovation company in Alice Springs with electrical, carpentry, CCTV alarms and all sort of aspects of building trades.
And out of interest, you were former police?
Yes. Former police officer with the Northern Territory Police and the Australian Federal Police, so all up just over 15 years service. A lot of it was general duty service in Alice Springs and remote Indigenous communities. And then I progressed on to the Tactical Response Group and then the AFP Tactical Response Group, doing sort of jobs all around Australia and overseas and places like Timor, Papua New Guinea, around there, places like that.
And now you're, I guess, on a different front line. Tell us about that.
Well, before I joined the police force, I did have a trade in communications, telecommunications, so doing data cabling, things like that, which led to a lot of my roles in the police doing like bomb response and things like that with my background. So when I determined it was time to leave, I basically went back to that trade doing data cabling, and then it just grew into the requirement to need electricians and then carpenters for all the jobs I was doing. So I sort of rolled the dice and set up a full trades company with all of those trades in the one house, and then just started subcontracting to different construction firms and things like that around town.
And a lot of your gigs at the moment, what are they?
Majority of our gigs at the moment are CCTV and alarms because of the environment we're sort of in at the moment. But then the other major part of that is renovating properties that are, I suppose, tenants vacate their properties. Then we're giving them to quote and renovate and then put them back into service. So, yeah, majority of that is Indigenous housing, yes. And
so describe the kind of house that you take, that you're given to renovate, and how often have you done one house?
Okay, we have had a couple of houses repeated over 1 year with the same house, same location. But yeah, a lot of them the tenants can be in there for say 6 months, and it then gets inspected. It has a lot of faults or defects from damage. And then it becomes uninhabitable. So then it's handed over to us to renovate and other companies in Alice Springs. So some of it comes from legitimate domestic violence events. Others come from vandalism events, from, say, youth crime in Alice, or the tenants themselves. Or what happens is we often see influxes of people from remote communities come in and have nowhere to stay. So they'll find relatives or friends that have a government property, and they'll all crash there. So you'll drive past a lot and you'll see mattresses out the front, mattresses on the veranda or in the car park. That is family members with nowhere to stay. They stay there. And then the alcohol issues become involved, and then you'll have disturbances, fights, and things get smashed. But on some occasions, a lot of the work which we have to do is from occupant damage. The typical thing with all of them is they do require a massive operation just to clean them and tidy the yards, things like that, so before you can actually start the work in there. There'll always be smashed windows or windows that are covered with timber because the glass is all smashed. The kitchens, stoves will be infested with roaches, mice, things like that. But that's not a fault of the dwelling. It's because there is food and nappies and things just laying all over the floor. They're not put in the bins and put it on the street like other sort of dwelling owners in town. So kitchens with no doors, the doors get ripped off. Things on the walls like saliva, urine, feces, graffiti, medication always laying around. There'll be clothes, old couches, old mattresses that we wouldn't sleep on. They're incredibly unhealthy. So yeah, they're all sort of a mixed bag when you get them, but generally those sorts of things are always there. There's always bio cleaning requirements and mass damage to kitchens, stoves, windows, security screens. All the fly screens will have holes in them. They all require generally paints, and a lot of them new floors because they're ripped up or the tiles are smashed. And it's where we get into a lot of the issues with, I suppose, responsibility. If you or I were to smash something, or we would be prosecuted and then fined and then probably blacklisted from renting another unit. We can put on the banned tenancy sort of list. So it is a massive recycling sort of event which doesn't stop. And that's not every tenancy, but there's a lot of them that we, obviously with the frequency and the amount of houses that are done here, it's quite a big issue. I can understand. When this first started with the issues with the kids, there was only small amounts of them on the streets, and that then was the signals going, hey, these kids don't want to be home. There is a reason why these kids don't want to be home. They weren't smashing things and breaking into things back then. It was just they were on the streets and they were hanging around. So they weren't on the streets to be criminals. They were on the streets because they didn't want to be home, and I don't blame them for that. I wouldn't want to be there either. But if we had have done something about this years ago, we would have gotten somewhere, I believe, but we didn't. We just let it go and let it go and let it go, and now it's become Australia's dirty secret, and all of a sudden I want to do something about it.
You're there to pick it up.
Once again.
Clean it up.
Yep,
Yeah.
Community's there to clean it up again, and the same old answer is just throw more money at it. But as you can see, this town it's not a money problem. This is a family problem, an environment problem, an education problem, and we said it years ago. Talking to Gunner was pointless. The man was, there's so many words for him, but just an incompetent fool. If we had to build a facility for these kids years ago, just somewhere safe, and even if it was full of beds, playstations, basketball courts, staff it with Indigenous people, that we're handing bulk money to certain organisations which don't do anything, and they've been here forever. I shouldn't say they don't do anything. They do stuff, but it's clearly not working. It's not effective. So there's no point throwing money at the same pools again. What we found, and even, I suppose with territory families, they look after a lot of kids that just want family and want love, want help, want all the rest of it. If we had some sort of facility like that, these kids, a lot of them would self-represent just to have somewhere to sleep, where they're safe, going to get some love, some interaction and some food and a shower and stuff like that. We see them here going into Kmart and they just get changed in where the new clothes is and then run out the store with new clothes. They're not doing that to be arseholes. They want clothes. They need clean clothes, and they can't shower at home. You're not getting clean clothes at home. So these are not criminal elements or organised juvenile crime gangs. These are kids that need a family and need some love.
Survival.
Exactly. Yep. And I don't know any race or religion or anything that would do anything different. They would all be the same if they were in that environment.
If you thought this report was as important as I do, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it far and wide, because we know the ABC is not telling the truth from here on the ground in Alice Springs. And then head over to therealvoice.com.au, check out our reports there from here on the ground, and have your say in the poll. And finally, if you think our mission is important, please consider chucking in a few bucks. We don't take your tax dollars without asking you to fund fake news. We ask you to help support real journalism from independent journalists. Therealvoice.com.au. Anything helps. It wasn't cheap to get here, but it was well worth it. And with your support, I'm sure we'll cover the cost. Therealvoice.com.au. Check it out.